So yes, my name is Jennifer German, and I just need to start this presentation with saying that this presentation is not affiliated with any space organization, space program, space anything. It's just me. All the opinions, views, and all, they're just me. All right? I am a space enthusiast, and I feel that we should all know what's going on in the world around us. So I wanted to do this, and the library was very kind enough to let me. All right, let's get going. So first off, we have, of course, NASA, right? Yeah, NASA's my bae. Love, love, love NASA. They are leading the way in space activities and exploration. But as there are many people in our community, including me, who give presentations on what NASA is doing, I am not going to spend much time on them at all today. Please do come to future AADL space presentations that talk about NASA a lot. And do remember, April 8th of next year is the total solar eclipse. It will be totality in Toledo. It's not that far. Just, okay.
There's one this fall, too, out west.
Yes, if you want to get down to New Mexico or something, there is. That is correct. Okay. New Mexico might not be cloudy. Toledo, you never know, especially in April. Okay, so besides NASA, there are a lot of other space programs we hear about. ESA, Roscosmos, that's what that says in Russian, or at least in Englishified Russian. And I bet you know Roscosmos was formerly USSR, currently the Russian Federation. They are, of course, have done a whole lot of stuff in space, right? They're one of 3 countries that can launch humans into space. They call them cosmonauts. We call them astronauts. The USA and China are the other 2. They are the other major partner of the International Space Station with NASA. So there are 15 countries that partnered on the International Space Station. They're led by NASA and Roscosmos. And when our space shuttle program was shut down, NASA actually contracted with Roscosmos to have them send our astronauts up to the International Space Station until a commercial USA company was able to do so. That ended up being SpaceX, and so we're launching our own again now. But, so what I think is amazingly awesome that Roscosmos, Russia, has just done this year, and I'm betting nobody knows about it because I didn't even know about it till about 2 weeks ago, right, is, I apologize, I can't pronounce this name in Russian. So it's Vyazov, or in English, The Challenge. It is a full feature-length movie, the first one that was shot by a professional filmmaker in space, including a professional actress in space on the International Space Station. I'm so stoked for this movie, right? So it's about a thoracic surgeon who is sent up to the International Space Station to save the life of an ailing cosmonaut. And the movie is actually about how cosmonauts get trained and what goes into everything. And Russia said the point of it, of course, was to attract more interest into their space program, but also to get more females involved in their space program. The movie came out April 20th in Russia and surrounding countries. April 27th, it went to China. No, it went to the Middle East, sorry. China's next on the list, and I'm hoping that we get an English subtitled version soon, because I really want to see it. Okay, so NASA's awesome. Roscosmos is awesome. Who else? There's a bunch of other people, right? All right, I'm going to start planetary body-wise. Our closest neighbor, the moon. Who's on the moon right now? Does anybody know? China? Yep. India. Yes, Japan just crashed, so they're kind of there.
They're all over the moon.
Yes, they're all over the moon, exactly. All right. Yes, ISRO. Did I say that right? ISRO. Yes, that is the Indian Space Organization. KARI is actually there too. That's South Korea. JAXA. They have been there before the one that crashed also, so yes. iSpace, UAE, which is the United Arab Emirates Space Agency, is there. NASA, and CNSA, which is China. China is the one that currently has the largest presence on the moon at the moment. They even have rovers motoring around, just doing stuff, which NASA hasn't done on the moon yet, obviously on Mars. But as a side note, Roscosmos and ESA both have been to the moon in the past. They're not there currently. All right. And there's one other nation that is not currently on the moon but tried really hard to be. Does anybody know who that is? So a few years back.
Israel?
Yes, Israel. That's right. The Bereshit spacecraft. It was built by Space IL, which is a private Israeli nonprofit, in conjunction with IAI, so that's the Israeli space industries, that's their governmental organization. It was launched on a SpaceX rocket from Florida. It made it to the moon April 11th, 2019, so into orbit. And then IAA's statement about the spacecraft landing was, "We had a failure in the spacecraft. We unfortunately have not managed to land successfully. It is a tremendous achievement up until now, though." So when I heard this, I was like, it didn't land successfully. What does that mean? Like, what do people think? They get crashed. I was like, does it mean... Right, yeah, did they miss completely and it's flying off in space somewhere? Did it get stuck in orbit like things sometimes do? Did it crash? What is it? So I learned, and what I was able to find, of course, was NASA's statement, which was, after a smooth initial descent, Bereshit made a hard landing. So I'm going to side note here, because I get to ramble on space stuff today, and I'm really excited about it. I love the creative terms that teams come up with. You know, you have whole departments that do this stuff. And so, yes, they come up with terms like hard landing, which means it crashed. You were right. And they have something called a RUD, a rapid unscheduled disassembly. That means it blew up. So, I know. It's great, though. Oops. Let me move on here. Oh, there was a term I used earlier, BAE. I put just, it means before all else, anyone else, just in case you were wondering. Okay. Bereshit is an example of a hard landing. So here is an example of a RUD from January of 2015. This is courtesy of SpaceX. Yeah, so slow motion again. So what's happening is the rocket successfully went up and launched its payload. It is attempting to make an automated landing so that it can be reused, which is actually very important in the space industry right now. And so it obviously came at the wrong angle and rapidly disassembled. All right, so, and as someone mentioned earlier, there was another RUD 2 weeks ago, April 20th. So, by SpaceX, I should say, not Japan. So the difference between the one from April 20th and this one we just saw from 2015 is that 2 weeks ago, the rocket made it up. It was Starship, Starliner? Gosh, I got to get these names right. Starship, thank you. Got up, and all they were testing was getting up off the launch pad. So that was a success. 3 of the engines, yeah, there's so many freaking engines. And it then started to tumble in the sky. And so they were like, well, that's not supposed to happen. And they sent the self-destruct code. And it didn't. Right. So now we had a problem. 40 seconds later, it exploded. So that was the unscheduled disassembly, because it was supposed to have happened when they pressed the button. So they're looking into that, and they say there will be more explosives next time, just to be sure. I know, right? It's because that's what you want under your butt when you're flying. Okay.
And Elon said he's kissing some butt for a while, too.
Elon was the one on Twitter talking about it, so. Okay, back on track. Mercury, right? Who's at Mercury right now? Nobody. Nobody at all. However, there is a joint ESA-JAXA mission called Bepi-Colombo that launched in 2018. It is currently on its way. It will arrive in 2025. And NASA has been to Mercury before. We just don't have anything currently going on there. Okay, Venus. Who's at Venus right now? No, actually there is one. JAXA. Yep. Yeah, that worked. Okay, good. However, so JAXA's there. United States and Roscosmos have both been there before. Roscosmos actually is still considered the leading authority on Venus, especially landing on Venus. They successfully did it late 70s or something. It's amazing pictures you should go see at some point. And Roscosmos, ESA, USA, like I said, have been there. Roscosmos is planning to go back to Venus. Yes. My favorite sister planet, so yeah. Mars, though. Who's at Mars right now? Anybody?
Our dead rover.
Yes. Our dead rover and our living rover. So yes, we are, NASA. So almost as many countries are on Mars as on the moon. I mean, Mars is the place to be right now interplanetarily. We've got ISRO, we've got the UAE Space Agency, ESA, CNSA, NASA. NASA is the one with the largest presence on the moon at the moment. We even have a drone that flies around on Mars. I said the moon, I meant Mars. But yeah, we have a little drone flying around on the Mars too. It's kind of cool. But not talking about NASA, right? Okay. Roscosmos, previously been there, does have plans to go back. Okay, so I'm going to ramble on about Roscosmos for a few minutes here. So just, give me a little. I feel so bad for Russian planetary scientists, okay? They have not been to another planet since 1983, Venus. Like 4 decades. And it's not like they haven't been trying, all right? So time after time, they've tried this, it fails. They've tried it, they've been denied. I feel so bad for them. 1994, they were built on the launch pad, ready to go to Mars, and budget cuts canceled the launch. The whole thing was already done. They just didn't go. Oops, that's my bad. 96, they attempted a launch, and it failed to leave Earth orbit. So it got off the ground, and then just stayed. Over the next 2 decades, they attempted to partner with NASA twice to go to Mars. One time it didn't happen on our side, and one time it petered out on their side. So, all right. Then they also had 2 green-lighted, planned projects underway that got canceled for budget cuts before they were completed. They finally get another chance in 2011. They've partnered with CNSA to go to Mars. And the launch blows off. I'm sorry, it rapidly unscheduled disassembled. So the problem here was, so their partner, China, went, you know what? We're just going to start our own Mars program, thanks anyway, and went off. So then they're left by themselves again. So Roscosmos goes, look, we have these rockets that have been reliable since the beginning. Surely someone wants to partner with us to go to Mars. Come on, somebody. And ESA was like, you know what? We do want your rockets. Those are exactly what we need. Can we buy them? Like, we don't need a partner. We can launch them ourselves. We just need the rockets. So they sell, which is good. They get the money, right? But the scientists still don't get off the ground. Okay. So, yes.
On that last one, where did they launch from?
Oh, ESA launches from French Guiana.
Would they launch the Russian rockets from
Yeah.
there?
Well, not anymore. They launch their own rockets now, but yes.
Did China do that so that they could copycat the rockets?
We'll get to that later. He asked if China pulled out so they could copycat the rockets. We'll talk about China a little later, yes. Okay, so finally, ESA and Roscosmos partner. We're going to Mars, right? This is called the ExoMars project. There are 2 parts. In 2016, the first part launched. It was a orbiter and a lander. It arrived in 2016. Things are going well. 2022, the second part is a lander and a rover, and is going to do the mission research that, like, all right, so we're going. Now, it's 2023, and that has not launched yet. Yeah, what happened? ESA's now saying it's going to be 2028 before it launches. Any thoughts on what happened? No? Yes! Russia attacked Ukraine. And ESA said, no thanks. We're done. And so the delay now is because while Roscosmos can get off the ground, they can't get to Mars. And ESA is now trying to find or build replacements for the contributions from Roscosmos. And so they're saying it's going to take them another 4 or 5 years. I do have some good news for Russian scientists, and that is Roscosmos very recently has become much more well-funded. They have projects underway now. Like I said, they're planning to go back to Venus. They're building for Mars. Things are happening. Let's hope it stays that way, and they can finally get to another planet again. Okay. Oh. Let's get back on track. I got to find my... Here we go. Back on track again. Asteroids. Oops. Gave it away. So who's been to asteroids? Someone read that 1 second thing. JAXA. With Hayabusa 2. So this is the Hayabusa space probe by LEGO. I know, right? I love it. This is the part that so this is supposed to be the asteroid Ryugu. Sorry. This part touches down, goes right, collects some of the sample. The satellite flies back to Earth and then ejects this teeny tiny capsule with the sample in it, comes back through the atmosphere. This already happened. All right? December 2020, they've already got them. They're analyzing them. Oops. Cool stuff. The satellite stayed in orbit, and JAXA's like, you know what? Let's try again. So they're sending it off on another mission. NASA has also done an asteroid sample. OSIRIS-REx successfully collected and is on its way back from asteroid Bennu right now. It is scheduled to land this September. So we'll have our own samples. Yay! Happy birthday. Okay, comets. Who's been to comets? Actually, a lot of people have been to comets. We've been to Halley's Comet twice, and I don't mean we, NASA, I mean like out in the world. But for a sample return, just NASA, as far as I can tell. And nobody else is planning to do so in the future. And asteroids are the future, not comets. So, all right. Speaking of sample return missions, the moon. We, of course, know we have moon rocks. But CNSA in December 2020 was a big month for return samples. Chang'e 5 brought back moon rocks for the first time since 1976, which was when the Russians last did it. So for those wondering, Apollo 17, the last time we did it was 1972, as I checked my facts. Yes. Okay. And Chang'e 6 is set to bring home more lunar rocks. So, all right. What about sample returns from Mars? That's right. Yeah, no one's done it yet. Trying. There are multiple countries, so Russia, NASA, USA, are all trying to get samples back from Mars. JAXA decided to just do the Martian moons instead. Easier targets, easier to get on and off of a moon than a planet. They're scheduled to launch next year. So, we shall see. All right, going back to places that only NASA has been. Uranus, Neptune, and the dwarf planets Ceres and Pluto. Just NASA. In fact, and we actually have not landed Pluto, Neptune, Uranus. We flew by. Ceres did get an orbiter, the Dawn, which I did a presentation about years ago. So, moving on. China is considering going to Ceres, though, so that might be interesting. Oh, yes.
Are you going to go into series? Because I've never heard of it before.
I found my next presentation. I love Ceres. Oh, absolutely my favorite dwarf planet. I have one. It's pre-done. I could do it in the next hour, but I don't have the slides. Sorry. Yes, I will do one. It will be here at the AADL. We'll put it, you'll know. All is great. Okay. I got to do this presentation. Okay, really fast, digressing. Ceres is the largest body in the asteroid belt. Okay? So, way back in the day, and I have this whole awesome thing about the celestial police in my presentation, so please come. Anyways, they look for a planet between Mars and Jupiter. They find Ceres. Ceres was officially a planet. Then they find then they find Vesta, officially a planet. Then they find Pallas, officially a planet. So when they hit 11 planets, people started thinking. 43 years later, someone was like, I think there's a belt of these things out there. Ceres, Vesta, Pallas all get demoted. They become asteroids. The new term is put into effect. All right? So, and then, of course, Pluto, 80-some years later, Haumea, Eris, and Makemake are found out near Pluto, and someone goes, I bet there's a belt out there. And so Pluto gets demoted to dwarf planet, the new term. Well, Hubble has shown us that Ceres in the asteroid belt is actually the largest thing, is spherical, is holding a teeny tiny atmosphere. Yes, there is a planet, a dwarf planet. So Ceres got demoted from planet to asteroid and then promoted to dwarf planet. And I have like a hour-long presentation on that.
Is it bigger or smaller than the moon?
Ceres is bigger or smaller than the moon? Smaller? Thank you. You caught me and he saved me. It is smaller. Okay. All right. What are we talking about here? Oh, the sun. We can't forget about our own personal star. Right? Okay. Who's at the sun right now? Yes, the USA. And ESA. Both at the sun. Most countries are using telescopes here in orbit of the Earth to look at the sun. Only NASA and ESA are actually out there. However, ISRO does have plans to launch later this year, 2023, to the sun. So they're going, just not there yet. Okay. Humanity does not have an intentional way to leave the solar system yet. And before any of you, we have lots of knowledgeable people. Voyager 1 and 2, I know, they're out there. I'm not talking about them, that's NASA. Yes, sir.
I was just thinking, to leave the solar system, could we maybe build a base on Europa and use the water there?
Could we build a base on Europa and use the water there to leave the solar system? Europa being one of Jupiter's moons. I think first we have to figure out how to do that on the moon. Maybe then figure out how to get to Mars. Then we can work on getting to Jupiter's moons, building bases. But yeah, it's a great long-term plan. Yeah. So, we don't have a way out right now. What do we use? We use space telescopes. There are so many up in the sky right now. I'm not going to list them all. I just can't. So here are the space agencies with telescopes in orbit somewhere way up there. Roscosmos, NASA, ESA, JAXA, CSA, that's Canada, ISRO, and CNSA, China. Also, Sweden, separate from ESA. Italy has 2 on its own, separate from ESA. Russia, the Russian Space Institute, separate from Roscosmos. The Israel Space Agency has one. Canada has a handful of them.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought there was only 2 in the United States.
The United States has, like NASA has their own separate from Canada.
Right.
Yes. And we have way more than 2. I don't see the Webb, Hubble, Chandra, No, Parker Solar Probe's at the sun. There's the, SOHO. Yeah, no, I'm not even going to try and get through all of them. Okay. And then,
Only science telescopes, right?
yes, science telescopes for looking at the galaxy. Yep. Yeah, we have other telescopes that are looking at us, the sun. There's so many up there. And then, of course, then there's a joint one between Austria, Canada, and Poland. All right, so speaking of outside our solar system, let me digress to outside of our galaxy as well, okay? Everything we think we know from a long, long time ago, everything we think we know of other galaxies is from a long, long time ago. And that's due to the fact that we can only see the light when it reaches our telescopes or our eyes. And while light is super fast, it's one of the fastest things out there, although the speed of thought is about 5 times faster, but it's still, because the universe, the galaxies are so huge, it takes millions of years for light to reach us. So what we see out there is actually from millions of years ago. All right? This presentation is about what's going on today, here and now, not millions of years ago. But thankfully, I found a helpful calendar. May is Star Wars month. So, May the 4th, that's today. May the 4th be with you. Thank you. May 1st is 501st day. Why? Because when you write it out numerically, 501. May the 4th, tomorrow is Revenge of the 5th, however you want to say it. May 10th is the anniversary of the Solo movie. May 14th, George Lucas's birthday. May 16th is the anniversary of when Attack of the Clones came out, AOTC. May 19th for TPM and ROTS, that's The Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith. May 20th is Empire Day. May 21st, I hear someone giggling, is TESB anniversary, The Empire Strikes Back. May 25th, ANH and ROTJ, you're getting the hang of this, of course. That's A New Hope, Return of the Jedi. And then May 27th is when the Obi-Wan series was released. So I looked at this, got almost everything except May 20th, Empire Day. So I had to look that up. Does anybody know what it is? No. Okay. So the second Monday in March in Britain is called Commonwealth Day. It used to be May 24th for Queen Victoria's birthday. That was Commonwealth Day. And before that, in the first half of the 1900s, Commonwealth Day was called Empire Day for the British Empire. So, when Empire Strikes Back was released on May 20th, 1980, the promotion team from Lucasfilm sent stormtroopers out into the streets of London proclaiming the return of Empire Day. And they loved it. So in England, May 20th is officially Star Wars Empire Day. Okay. Back to current times. Wait, did someone have a question? I thought I saw a hand. Sir, did you have a question?
I was just wondering, do you know when the first Star Wars movie was released? I think it was released in May, maybe.
Yes, they all used to be released in May. And I had to figure out what happened, and apparently, roughly around the time Disney bought out the franchise, they all got moved to Christmas, December releases. But otherwise, May was the month that they would do releases. Yep. All right, so we have 8 space agencies from countries around the world that is up there doing their stuff in outer space. Canada's up there too, but it's mostly in the robotic parts of other people's projects. Like the robotic arm on the space shuttle, if people remember. Okay. Yes, and the space station, yep. So here in the 21st century, we, of course, also have private companies that are up in outer space. Here are the 14 most active, which means the easiest for me to find out about on the internet, in no particular order. Okay. Virgin Galactic. billionaire Richard Branson's company. This was the first non-governmental flight of humans into space. Tickets are $250,000 a seat, so not for us average income humans. Yes, sir.
Do you have any sense whether they're going to survive as a company?
Whether Virgin Galactic is going to survive?
Yeah.
No, that was... We'll talk afterwards. All right, Blue Origin. Billionaire Jeff Bezos' company, founder of Amazon, was the second non-governmental flight of humans into space. Virgin Galactic beat them by 9 days. They are currently working on space tourism. I could not find a price on a seat for tickets, but they do intend to become SpaceX's major competitor, and they are working on getting to the moon. So we'll see how that plays out. Speaking of, SpaceX. Everybody, yes. Elon Musk's company. They make the Falcon rockets, which there are two types, the Falcon 9 and the Falcon Heavy. They are currently the only contractor company, non-governmental agency that is launching astronauts to the International Space Station. They're using their Dragon spacecraft for that. They also frequently fly cargo to the International Space Station with the Dragon. And currently, as in 2 weeks ago, last week, they are launching and testing Starliner. We talked about that. Made it up. I'm sorry. Starship. I have it as Starliner. That means the one I said Starliner is Starship. Yeah. Yep. Oh, yeah, it says Starliner in both of them. Look at that. Starship. Launched, tumbled. We talked about it. Okay. That is going to be meant for getting down to and back up from other planetary bodies. So the moon, it is planned to be used with Artemis 3, and then Mars eventually. SpaceX's ultimate goal is to colonize Mars. They're very upfront about it. And of course, SpaceX also has Starlink, which is a high-speed, low-latency, broadband internet that works literally around the globe, even in remote countries and rural locations. It is what we call a satellite constellation because there are so many of them up there, and that's how they can reach everywhere, right? This is huge for third world countries. They have access, connection to the internet because of these satellite constellations. And SpaceX has also entered the commercial launch industry. So tickets for there start at $275,000, but not per seat. It is per 50 kilograms of payload. And they go up from there depending on what orbit you want your payload to enter into. Okay, OneWeb is a United Kingdom company that launches satellites with ISRO, so India. It is the only other truly global internet, so satellite constellation, that is available. It is Starlink's major competitor. So no, Elon Musk does not have a monopoly on everything. Northrop Grumman Space Systems. They fly cargo to and from the International Space Station via the Cygnus spacecraft, which was originally made by Orbital Science Corp. And Northrop Grumman went, we want to be in space, so they bought them. Astrospace. So I like this because this company was founded by former NASA employees. They are the quickest company in history to build and successfully launch a rocket because, well, they had done it before. Made it to space and into orbit of the Earth. They are currently involved in launching what they say research projects, so I assume that means satellites. They are working on a new spacecraft to deliver cargo to multiple points in space. I assume that means the International Space Station, the future Gateway Space Station, anything else up there. Okay, Boeing. We all know Boeing, right? Right? Yeah, it's the airline company. So, they're not there yet, but they're working on Starliner. Yes. to launch a spacecraft to launch astronauts into space to and from the International Space Station to be a competitor of SpaceX. They have launched empty spacecraft successfully. As of today, the last hurdle they have to jump to get approval from NASA is to successfully fly test flight with a crew. That is scheduled to happen a little bit later this year, so we'll be watching that.
Later than now.
Yes, they're many years late. They were supposed to be up at the same time as SpaceX, and they weren't.
Same time. Everybody said they would.
Yes, they thought, well, so my opinion, again, this is all just me, my opinion is that, everyone had high hopes for Boeing because it is very successful, very knowledgeable in aerospace. There's no air up there. There's no lift. There's no, things fly at launch, they get up there very differently, and I just think Boeing didn't have the experience that everybody expected they had.
They're waiting until NASA can.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Arianespace in France. Supposedly, and as far as I can tell, actually, the world's first commercial launch company. It serves worldwide. It launches Vega rockets, Soyuz, that's the Russians, rockets, and their own Ariane 5 rockets. They have launched several hundred satellites and other payloads into space. And they're currently working on getting to Jupiter with ESA. Cool stuff. iSpace is a Japanese company. It launches small and large payloads into Earth orbit. It also is working on landing on the moon successfully because last week it made a hard landing, which, as we remember from earlier, means it crashed. Interstellar Technologies, also a Japanese company, also launching into Earth orbit, and it is working on reaching the moon, but it's not far along as iSpace is. Galactic Energy from Beijing, China, launches satellites. It has one successful commercial rocket, the Series 1, and it is working on a second one called the Palace 1. And then we have iSpace, the Chinese company, not to be confused with the Japanese company of the same name. It made it to Earth orbit in 2019 and has struggled since then with abnormal performance. So we get our creative terms again, right? The Hyperbola 1 rocket, finally successful again this past month, April. But iSpace has not successfully delivered a payload into outer space since that first launch in 2019. Skyroot Aerospace in India was founded by former ISRO employees. It is successfully launching its Vikram suborbital rocket. It's going to attempt launching a version of Vikram with a 3D printed engine next year. And this is huge because this is a big step towards being able to build spacecraft in outer space if we can 3D print the parts. So we're all watching that. Well, anyway, Lastly, not leastly, Success Rockets, Russian company, as of this past January, is launching small or ultralight satellites into space. All right. I put this here not to incite a riot or a fight between Star Trek and Star Wars, okay? No. I simply want you all to see what I see as we move on to the next topic. Because, the whole reason I wanted to do this presentation, the whole reason I'm here today is China. I have been wanting to talk about China, okay? CNSA, the China National Space Administration. I've come to realize that here in the United States, we of course hear a lot about NASA. We hear a lot about ESA because they're a partner we're in good terms with, right? And they're part of the International Space Station. Same with Roscosmos, part of the International Space Station. Until recently, they were launching our astronauts. So, of course we were hearing about them. I've spent plenty of time on the private companies now. I want to talk about CNSA. But before I do you see it? Yes. Yeah. Okay, so for the people at home, yes. Yeah, we're live streaming also. So there has been no official comment, no official statement about the inspiration for China's logo. And of course, you know, this encircling wheat certainly has been in use by plenty of things, like well before television, Star Trek, well before even United States. I'm pretty sure the Greeks were using it first off, right? Okay. Ovals and circles for planets, makes sense. And then this, we'll call it a arrowhead. You know, we see that's a little pointer symbol we see on our computer every day. But when you put the three of those together in this configuration, I don't know. Anyway, what is CNSA up to? So, if you remember back to the first part of the presentation, oh good, I still have time. CNSA is not only on the moon, they're the largest presence on the moon right now. They have working orbiters, plural, landers, and they're on their third lunar rover. They also have a successful ascender. That's how they were able to get the samples back. The Chinese lunar exploration program started in 2007 with Chang'e 1, which was a lunar orbiter. The second orbiter, Chang'e 2, was launched in 2010. Chang'e 3 was a lander and rover and successfully soft landed on the moon December 14th of 2013. Although, as I recall, when that lunar landed, the lander made it successfully and the rover headed out and then started having operational difficulties. But it's okay. 2014, CNSA launched a spacecraft with the sole purpose of testing the ability to return from the moon, and that was successful. Then Chang'e 4 went up and then landed a new lander and a rover in 2018. Touched down safely on the far side of the moon. They also delivered German and Swedish sensor equipment at that time because China, 2016, I think it was, United Nations and China signed a agreement of peaceful operations, and so that China can open up to international partners in other countries. So, German and Sweden were the first to take advantage, of that. The first sample return mission, Chang'e 5, launched November 2020, returned December the same year, and brought back a little over 3.8 pounds of lunar samples. Chang'e 6 will not only bring back more samples from Earth, from the far side of the moon this time, but will put some French equipment down for the French scientists. So you may recall I said they're also on Mars. China has a working orbiter, lander, and Martian rover. Collectively, they're called Taiwan 1. I think China's all about rovers right now. CNSA also has 3 space telescopes. InSight HXMT, which stands for Hard X-ray Modulation Telescope, launched in 2017. The GCAM-C, which is a dedicated gamma ray all-sky monitor, but the acronym's not in English, launched last year, 2022. And then the Advanced Space-Based Solar Observatory, ASOS, which they nicknamed, I'm not even going to butcher that, it's right there, launched last year in 2022, so they can study the sun. So, they're doing great stuff. But in my opinion, the really big stuff that China is doing is not just this. It's not just that they can launch humans into space. But they've been doing so since 2003. October of 2003, to be specific, the 15th. So CNSA is coming on 20-year anniversary of launching taikonauts into space. That's what they call astronauts, cosmonauts. It was the 5th launch of their Shenzhou program that carried Yang Liwei into an elliptical orbit of Earth. So he became the first Chinese human to get into orbit using Chinese technology, a Chinese rocket, a Chinese spacecraft, and come home safely. 21 hours and 23 minutes later, he landed in central Inner Mongolia. That's 20 years ago. How, did any of you know about this? No. Like, how are we not knowing about this? The sixth Shenzhou launch was multi-person and multi-day. 2 years later, in 2005, Fei Zhonglong and Nai Hasheng spent more than 4 days in space and orbited the Earth 76 times. The first Chinese EVA was in 2008. And China's first female taikonaut, Liu Yang, went into space in 2012. Over 10 years ago. But even more impressively, or maybe more importantly, is China's launch of its first space station, Tiangong-1. That's a model. It went up in 2011. This is what I'm talking about, right? How many of us knew that China had a space station up in 2011? No. We hear about our stuff. We hear about our partners. This is big stuff. And we're not hearing about it. That's why I wanted to do this presentation. I want us to be educated. Yes?
It was in that movie with George Clooney. I forget the title of it. Gravity.
They're saying it was in the Gravity movie with George Clooney. I'm not going to publicly admit that I haven't seen it yet.
It's really good.
I had my reasons.
Well, you got to trade really good for very realistic, accurate.
Yes, he was saying the movie is really good, but you do have to trade that off for really accurate. And to be honest, the reason I didn't see it was because Neil deGrasse Tyson panned it. And I was like, okay. I like my boy. I'm gonna trust him on it. Okay. Tiangong-1 was designed for a 2-year mission. In June of 2012, Shenzhou 9 carried 3 taikonauts to this space lab for a 2-week stay. A year later, 3 more crew members visited on Shenzhou 10 mission. However, in 2016, CNA lost contact with the station. And so this first space lab fell to Earth in an uncontrolled fashion in April 2018. People might actually have heard about that because there was somebody posted, oh my gosh, it's going to land in New Jersey, which of course it didn't. It burned up over the southern Pacific Ocean. Okay, Tiangong 2 launched September of 2016. The next month, Shenzhou 11 sent 3 astronauts, and they stayed for a month. Tiangong 2 was also refueled 2 times over 5 months. CNSA was practicing docking, sending cargo, refueling. The purpose of this one was to lay foundation for a permanent Chinese station. CNSA did maintain control over Tiangong 2 to the end and guided it to its demise in July of 2019 over the South Pacific. So, I guess we can all figure out now that China is on its 3rd space station. In April 29th of 2021, CNSA launched the first of the space station's 3 modules, right here. And that contains the crew living quarters. On July 24th of 2022, so over a year later, the second module went up. It's a research lab. And then the Mengtian Science Lab was the last one to go up in October of 2022. And that completed the space station. So in total, this space station is about 20% the size of the International Space Station. But it still is starting to rival the ISS in research. The Tiangong Space Station, there's your picture, is intended to be inhabited continuously by 3 taikonauts, just like the International Space Station is inhabited continuously. This one has 2 docking ports, one on either end. So here and here, that's the port right there. One is for the Tianzhu robotic cargo ships. The other is for the Shenzhou crew capsules, which also serves as the lifeboat if necessary. The first crew from Shenzhou 14 mission moved into the station last June. So that was before it was completed. They stayed through the docking of the 2 science modules. In December, this past December, Shenzhou 15 crew took over, and they're still up there now. They're scheduled to return to Earth later this month, May, when Shenzhou 16 goes up and arrives at the space station. All right. So I covered non-USA governmental space agencies and what they're doing, especially Roscosmos. Then I talked about commercial and private space agencies. And lastly, CNSA. And I don't expect you to remember everything from this presentation, right? This is a lot of information. What I want for you to come away with is an understanding that there's a lot going on, more than we may realize. All right, I want you to just have a better and deeper understanding of what's happening up in outer space around our world. The Russian Mir space station and the space shuttle program, these are so old now that they are history. They're not even old news anymore. The International Space Station is actually on its way out. It is scheduled for decommissioning in 2030, which is just an extension. It was supposed to be next year. No, 2 years, 2025. Biden administration extended it for another 5 years. However, Roscosmos is leaving in 2025. They're, it is an intention. I mean, there are no done deals in space. That's exactly right. Until something burns up. But my point is that while NASA is the forerunner and is doing the most on exploration, space, everything right now, it's not the only one up there. And NASA is not as far ahead of everyone else as we here in the United States might think. Any questions? Ooh, yay. All right, I'm going this way.
You mentioned the poor Russian scientists, but isn't most of this information open source?
So the question is, I was mentioning the poor Russian scientists, isn't most of this information open source? That depends on where it's coming from. CNSA? No. JAXA? Yeah. NASA? Definitely, but there's a lag time. So, besides, when you're talking about the science and research world, the most important part is who publishes first. So when you have first access to the data, you have a significant advantage.
So what's your opinion about China duplicating everything that NASA has done?
What's my opinion about China duplicating everything NASA has done? Well, I would say that they're actually not duplicating everything NASA has done. I mean, you can see where they got their logo inspiration from. So I feel like they are, I would have to say, smartly leveraging what's out there already. Yeah, they're taking what's working, and yeah, they're copying it because it works, right? So do it. Yeah, because their spacesuits look like ours, you know? How many different ways can you design a spacesuit? I don't know. I'm not a designer. But, yeah.
What is the likelihood of other intelligent life existing in the universe?
What is the likelihood of other intelligent life existing in the universe? What's the name of the equation?
Drake equation.
The Drake equation answers that question. The likelihood is actually really high. The problem is not only exist, they have to have advanced enough technology to make contact. They have to have the desire to make contact. They have to have the desire to care about anything beyond their own world. Like, why are we assuming that extraterrestrial space life is going to have the same values and goals and stuff that we do? Ego, right, exactly. So you have to exist at the same time. Well, actually, there is a problem with that, though, because as I said, we only know about what's happening when the light and the signals get to us. So even if there is one existing right now and sending signals to us, we're not going to get it for a couple thousand, 100 years. If they were sending it before, we weren't listening until, 50 years ago. Like, yeah. Yes, I believe there's life out there somewhere. I believe it is nothing like us, and that it is going to be very hard to figure this out because of that.
So last I heard, they successfully grew seeds on the moon, but I haven't heard anything else since then. Are they still?
So she said the last she heard that China successfully grew seeds on the moon. What happened with that? Well, you can go visit a moon tree that's planted. So
It's back here.
yes, it's back here on Earth. The seeds were viable. The plants are viable. Other countries have duplicated. Yep.
But they're not continuing to grow.
No. So they were grown in lunar soil. They were not grown on the surface of the
Why did they
moon.
grow on the surface, so they're in a lab?
Yes, they're in a lab. That's correct. But yes, it is with lunar soil. So if you add the right stuff, it's viable. Although my response to that was, yeah, if I pick up any dirt from anywhere and add the right stuff, it's viable. So I mean,
That's true.
plants grow because they're designed to grow. I don't know. I'm not, again, my own opinion. I'm not an expert. I know very little about how all of the chemistry of that.
At least one time, I remember that there was a lot of concern about polluting, say Mars, for example, with life material, life forms from Earth. Is that pretty much out the window?
No, okay, so that's my phone. It will ring for 6 minutes, so let me just shut it off. Okay. That's to remind me to take my medicines. I say that because Space Mom would be proud. You all know who I'm talking about. If you don't, ask me later. Okay, the question was Mars. There used to be concerns about polluting Mars with potentially things from Earth that would either destroy, inhibit any potential Martian life, or even seed it with life from our own planet.
Or would be interpreted as having already been there?
Right, or may be interpreted as having been there when actually it came with the equipment to Mars. And the question was, is all of that out the window? No, it is not out the window. So I did a different presentation on this a while back. I have a 15-minute version of it. Maybe someday we'll... Ooh, we could nerd night that.
We gotta give some other people some nerd night.
Yeah. I mean, next year. Next year. Anyways, there is something called planetary protection in effect. And so the rules of that, when you propose a project, so anybody who wants to propose a project, you have to say where you want to go, why you want to go there, what you're going to do there, blah, blah, blah. And then NASA, as the lead, but the other space agencies are following suit, then says, okay, so if we're talking about Mars, this part of Mars has been designated as highly likely for life. You may not send that there. Or if you want to send it there, you have to have this level of cleanliness certification. You have to make sure you have killed everything that could possibly microscopically have been on this thing before it launches. And then you keep it in a sterile bubble all the way to the launch pad and up. It is still in effect.
Everyone's on board with that so far.
Currently, everyone's on board. How the private companies may play, I don't know. But the nations are on board.
I'd like to make a statement. On a website called The Debrief, they have a reporter there who I saw interview. He claimed that, first off, he wrote an article about using the gravity wave detectors that have recently come up on the Earth, in low on Earth, to detect the gravity waves. It's a fairly recent development. And he said that he got a phone call from a Swedish think tank made up of physicists. Now this is what interests me, and I found it very interesting. What's the point? The point is that he said these Swedish physicists in this think tank called him up. They said they were working on methods of utilizing these gravity wave detectors of detecting disturbances in the fabric of space. In other words, warp engines. When I think of warp engines, I think of warp drive. When I think of warp drive, I think of Star Wars, hyperspace, and Star Trek warp drive. So, he was making the claim that these guys were working on ways of detecting these gravity waves. Now, this would be a detection of warp drive of alien spacecraft, and you know who has not detected alien life yet? SETI. And good old Carl Sagan was always demeaning the topic of UFOs. Well, anyways, putting that aside, and I went to U of M, and they had a person scientist, talking about building new detection places on Earth, both in space and on Earth in the next 20 years. What's my point? My point is, why isn't anyone talking, at least I haven't heard widespread talking about this idea of detecting the warp drive of alien spacecraft with gravity wave detection devices?
Okay, so first of all, I just noticed your dress, and awesome. It's BB-8, people. I just can't believe I didn't notice till now. So his comments were about basically the detection of gravity waves distorting space-time. We have detectors we believe can do that now. There's a Swedish think tank working on it. We've heard about, I don't know if you all, but I've heard about it. Yes. Okay. And they're looking for patterns. They're looking for evidence of lots of things straight from the beginning of the universe.
Neutron stars, black holes.
Yes, neutron stars, black holes. And what he said is that this technology, there was a reporter who was talking with the Swedish think tank about it could detect anomalies, disruptions in the gravity wave, which would indicate a either warp or hyperdrive type of technology of an alien species. And so why are we not focusing on that? Why are we not hearing about that? My base opinion on the subject is, one, it's brand new. Okay, it's just started, and by brand new, I do mean the last 4 or 5 years, you know, not like 2 months ago. And so things like that take time to perpetuate out, especially to the masses. Again, we have people here in the United States that give presentations about NASA. NASA's not involved. So we're not hearing about it. I'm going to step into Star Trek mode now and say, so for warp drive to actually work, and yes, it is disruption in the gravity fields and everything, subspace has to exist. We have not proved the existence of subspace. Subspace, in theory, in Star Trek theory, is, I mean, conceptually we say underneath, but not really. It is something that is behind or underneath, however you need to conceptualize it in your brain, that connects to all points in space, but in a hugely compressed way. And so you can get from point A to point B supposedly by stepping through the door and stepping back out over here, right? Effectively. Now, as far you get further away, of course, there's time to travel in subspace as there would be in normal space, but the amount you're traveling is the whole point of it. The whole reason Star Trek came up with that is because of the speed of light issue, right? As you approach the speed of light, time slows down. That's the really, really, really basic theory behind Einstein's theory that is very complicated. That has been proven. And so Star Trek needed a way to get around that. And just like the Heisenberg principle, which is you can only ever know a particle's location or its speed, not both at the same time, Star Trek fixed that by saying, oh, we have this thing called a Heisenberg compensator. So we can know everything we need to know. So whether or not the gravity waves is a way, like getting beyond that and being able to break through that is a way for faster than light travel is unknown. And that's why nobody's thinking about using it to detect alien spacecrafts, in my opinion.
We've detected the convergence of 2 black holes
Yes.
generating gravitational waves.
Yes.
Would a starship have that much energy?
Okay. he said we've detected, I see you, I'm getting to you.
All right, and then we've got to.
And then we got to go because we're way over. I know, it's so interesting. But so he says we've detected 2 black holes intersecting and the gravitational wave distortion due to that, right?
Just barely do it.
We can just barely detect it. So would a starship be able to do that? Now, going back to the Star Trek universe, again, all made up. Starship, no. Romulan Warbird uses a quantum singularity, so yes. Your turn.
I just thought something kind of cool. I don't know how many of you play Minecraft or know about it, but I just thought subspace is kind of like the nether.
He said Minecraft, for those of you who play, that he thinks subspace is like the nether. I said that right. My daughters play, I don't, so I'm hoping I said that right. Okay. Thank you all so much. I will still be here if you want to come talk to me in person. Thank you so much for coming.